This is Part 2 Episode 164. Sixth round, start. Chen Zidian's voice was still full of grandeur, as the final rankings round for the individual competition started. Long Haochen immediately returned to the lounge upon the end of his match. What he wanted the least was to be in the first match. As long as he would not be the first, he would have some time to recover, due to the Heart of Eternity's formidable recovery, which filled him with confidence on this aspect. It is unknown whether the light of selection had its own will to make things like that, but its first light lit on Long Haochen, while the other one accurately illuminated Li Jingji's body. When the two lights of selections had settled, the whole alliance's great stadium was visibly in total disorder. The first match of the sixth round was unexpectedly opposing Long Haochen and Li Jingji. One could say that this was the most crucial battle out of the whole individual competition. If Li Jingji managed to defeat Long Haochen, although the Mage Temple's total points would still be behind Bright Glimmer of Hope, it wouldn't be by much. And with Li Jingji figuring in the top 3, even if the other 2 spots were to belong to 2 members of Bright Glimmer of Hope, the number 1 powerhouse of the alliance would surely be acknowledged by a lot to be him. It wasn't easy to say whether this battle was fair. Long Haochen's consumption against the Earth Mage was certainly not as great as what Li Jingji had exerted against Chen Ying'er, but Long Haochen had just finished his previous match, while on the other side Li Jingji was the first one of the previous round to go on stage. But, no matter what, since the light of selection had made its pick, it wouldn't be changed now. Long Haochen had a quite severe expression, while Li Jingji looked quite happy, obviously pleased with the light of selection's choice. Going up against Long Haochen was his most desirable outcome. The two of them faced off each other. The instant they made it on stage, the whole audience went totally silent, devoid of the slightest whisper. Long Haochen placed his right fist on the left of his chest, performing a standard knight salute in front of Li Jingji. "Greetings, Temple Head Li." Li Jingji revealed a humble smile. Deeply moved, he declared, "I really didn't expect you to be my final opponent in this temple's great gathering. Do you remember what I told you a few years back? That the next temple's great gathering would be the time for you to challenge me. But you have shifted this time 10 years ahead. The future is a world for you youngsters, but what I have said doesn't change. If you want to take my place in challenging the Demon God Emperor, you must defeat me. Come, show me whether you are able to achieve this." Long Haochen nodded lightly and moved his right fist horizontally for another salute before his 6 wings, that had vanished just a bit earlier, reappeared, bringing him aloft. Li Jingji started a rapid chant, shifting his gaze to be locked onto Long Haochen. A dense green light spread, as his chant carried a fantastic rhythm to the ears of everyone present. Long Haochen did not opt for an offensive approach in the same way as the previous lightspeed flash. The Heart of Eternity pulsed intensely on his chest to recover his spiritual energy, and in the meantime, his right hand was pointed in front of him, summoning the divine unicorn Star King back to his side. "Star King, lend me your strength." Long Haochen groped his head. Star King nodded lightly, extending his wings, as a dazzling starlight of 7 colors shone on its horn. The next instant, the 7 colors spread again, covering Long Haochen and his mount in their scope. Long Haochen rode Star King, the multicolored starlight falling and going back up, to form a multicolored pillar of light, going all the way to the top of the barrier. Although Star King had already become a divine unicorn, its foundations were still the same, as Starlight Unicorn King's. This was its star domain. Originally, for the sake of assisting Long Haochen, he had once forcefully used this skill. But now that it reached the 9th step of cultivation, utilizing star domain couldn't be more easy. Although it was still not a genuine domain, it was very close to that. A light essence of incomparable intensity gathered inside Long Haochen's body in the midst of the Heart of Eternity's intense pulse. His spiritual energy was replenished at a frightening speed. Star King's eyes lit up, and with a long hiss, the horn atop its head lit up, wrapping Long Haochen and itself in light, so that their silhouettes were hidden from the outside world. Everyone had their own trump cards. Just like Li Jingji had yet to use his most powerful ability, Long Haochen also had yet to reveal his most powerful mode. When facing Yang Haoyu, he did not have the opportunity to unleash it, as he had to utilize his domain non-stop and resist the opponent. But right now, when facing Li Jingji, and as this was most likely his last match, why would Long Haochen show any more reservations? The multicolored radiance vanished, and when Long Haochen reappeared to everyone's sight, the audience couldn't help but gasp at the sight of him. Right now, his whole body was shining under the illumination of his multicolor armor, flowing with multicolored light rippling out. From the looks of it, he appeared to have a demeanor very close to divine knights. The multicolored light was a sign of divine tools. The divine unicorn transformed into a multicolored armor was equivalent to a divine tool level armor. And he benefited from the extreme boost from Star Domain, which had replenished Long Haochen's used-up spiritual energy, making 80% of it available to him right now. As a supreme-level transformed mount, the divine unicorn, which seemed to be just a supportive character, and furthermore not up to much, was visibly underestimated by a lot. As it turned out, although Star King had just evolved recently, and had yet to acquire a lot of a divine unicorn's abilities, he was still a genuine divine unicorn. The divine armor put on him, Long Haochen's eyes leaked a dazzling glow. Adding to that his six-winged appearance and extremely handsome face, it drew the gazes of all the females present to him. Hao Yue! Long Haochen shouted loudly at once. In a dazzle of purple gold, Hao Yue reappeared by his side, this time turned into a purplish golden radiance rushing forth toward Long Haochen. The spectators had all witnessed Hao Yue's armor transformation. That's also what happened in the match between Long Haochen and Yang Hao Yue, which combined with his domain's evolution enabled him to achieve victory. Could he be planning to equip double armors? Thought most. However, they rapidly realized their mistake. Hao Yue did not transform into his armor form, but into a gigantic sword, appearing in Long Haochen's hands. The divine unicorn armor and Hao Yue transformed into a purplish gold Hao Yue sword. That's Long Haochen's strongest mode, even in a situation without the use of any equipment from him. It was the first time for Hao Yue to transform into a sword. Compared to Long Haochen's other two divine swords, Hao Yue's transformation was much more massive in size. The sword itself was over 3 meters long, colored purplish gold, with a 1 meter long hilt. Long Haochen also needed to use his two hands to wield it correctly. This ultra-large sword had 9 lines stretching from the handle up to the sharp point. 6 mini Hao Yue heads extended from the thick blade, all spouting as if the edge came from their breath. While gripping this heavy sword, Long Haochen felt an incomparably tyrannical power surge out from this heavy sword. Linked with the bloodline force in him, its power seemed as if an extension of his own body. As a knight, Long Haochen had a keen link with his weapon. In front of this purplish gold Hao Yue sword, even blue rain, hibiscus of light of the aria of the goddess of light seemed lackluster. Imperceptibly, he sensed the aura of a 6-elemental essence of disorder surging out from this gigantic sword. How could he imagine that Hao Yue would reach such a level of power after transforming into a sword? As Long Haochen's two magical beast companions transformed into equipment forms, on the other side, Li Jingji's forbidden spell was done getting cast. An immense green shadow appeared behind him. Wind God summon. An immense wind god looking the same as Li Jingji appeared out of nowhere. Right off the bat, that massive figure was 15 meters long, but bizarrely, its volume compressed itself, and in just a little while, it reached a length of 5 meters. Although it remained relatively huge, that made it a lot nimbler. All clad in greenish golden armor, it wielded a pair of axes. That was Li Jingji's wind god summon, clearly different from the wind god used against Chen Yinga. Not only its weapons differed, but it gave off an entirely different feeling. Li Jingji's whole body flashed in green color. In a flash, he entered in the midst of the wind god, whose eyes lit immediately as if infused with intelligence. Single-mindedly looking at Long Haochen, its axes pierced through the sky, and a hurricane burst out. That was the wind god domain's first domain technique, hurricane. Waves of golden light surged in tides, flocking frantically towards Long Haochen. Long Haochen remained very calm, and his divine unicorn turned into a multicolored armor liberating flashes of golden light, accompanying the release of the light god domain. Two brilliances of golden and green color clashed each other. Due to Li Jingji's domain technique, the instant the two brilliances flashed through the sky, Long Haochen's light god domain had a burst of power. But one could clearly see that where the two great domain techniques clashed, a white fire was ignited. Wind blew through this white flower, causing a remarkable shaking as well as a rise of strands of blue flames. Elemental suppression. This was an elemental suppression appearing in the midst of a contest of domains. From Long Haochen's view, this was the last match of the individual competition, so he no longer showed any reservations. The power of the light god domain came out in full swing, erupting all around. The light essence of extreme purity was sufficient to suppress powerhouses of any elemental attribute. Li Jingji's domain technique also wielded some of the wind god's power, and at his cultivation level, his wind attribute was compressed to a great extent since long ago, but an insurmountable gulf still separated it from Long Haochen in terms of purity. Long Haochen's light attribute came not only from his sign of light physique, but moreover from the upgrade of the divine snail shield of sun and moon and the assimilation of Elux's physique as a sign of light. The three great light entities reached such a level that even if the goddess of light herself were to come out in front of him, her spiritual energy's purity may not even be a match. So, Light God was truly a well-deserved name. Li Jingji's domain was named Wind God, but that was just a name, not the true Wind God's power. Even if the purity of his attribute were to be a match for Long Haochen, wind remains inferior to light. As a result, although Long Haochen's light god domain looked constricted, he actually had the advantage in the clash of domains. The wind god made its move. Flashing across, it arrived at the point of collision between the two domains. Waving the blade in its hand, it immediately sent a greenish-gold ray flying through the light god domain, carrying along a hazy mist. Even if this blade was still far from Long Haochen, he felt very clearly its sharpness, perfectly combining blade intent and wind. Long Haochen felt secretly alarmed. Li Jingji was a mage. But even in this capacity, he managed to deploy blade intent with his sheer technique. That was really a shocking talent. Long Haochen didn't avoid, neither did he shrink back. In this situation, if he were to retreat, Li Jingji's attack would certainly make way inside the light god domain, and thanks to his own wind god domain, he wouldn't get too much affected by the light god domain. But more importantly, should his domain be breached through, Long Haochen would be unable to utilize the divine light walls he had just comprehended recently. So, Long Haochen faced the attack, coming up after his figure flashed. Wielding the purplish-gold Haoyue sword in his hands, he performed a downwards hacking motion. A purplish-golden sword ray was abruptly released from the purplish-gold Haoyue sword, but to Long Haochen's shock, his sword soul was actually unable to merge into Haoyue's sword form. This gigantic sword gave off the feeling that it would reject everything other than his spiritual energy and sword intent. The purplish-golden sword ray was over 1 meter long, vastly contrasting with Li Jingji's wind god blade ray. But these two powerful lights produced an unexpected scene at the time of their clash. The current wind god was entirely under Li Jingji's control. With the long blade in its hand, as well as his hurricane domain technique aiming at Long Haochen, he believed with certainty that this strike would at least send Long Haochen flying away. Then he would keep using the wind god domain to assault Long Haochen's domain over and over. Although his opponent had the advantage in terms of sheer domain strength, he had already comprehended two domain techniques, and his research and understanding of his own domain surpassing Haochen's by far, he was confident in being able to surpass Long Haochen and achieve a final victory. But the instant his long blade came into contact with Haochen's purplish-gold Haoyue sword, Li Jingji felt indescribable surges of terror from his brain, and immediately, the sword rays emitted from that long sword turned purple. In a flash of purplish gold, a rainbow light seeped out from the massive sword in Long Haochen's hands. That terrifying power full of destruction and havoc forced Li Jingji to draw back swiftly as he flipped his long blade, forcefully cutting his connection with the blade rays. Everywhere those purplish-golden sword rays passed, the hurricanes within the wind god domain were smashed to pieces, as the rays would keep traveling until reaching the defensive barrier on the edges of the field, causing it to tremble violently before piercing a hole inside, passing through it, and smashing into the ceiling of the Alliance's great stadium. To say nothing about Li Jingji's dilemma, even Long Haochen himself was shocked. He absolutely didn't expect Haoyue's sword transformation to reach such a terrifying level. This seemed to be beyond the power of any ordinary divine tool. When sensing it, that purplish-golden sword ray did not give off an excessively powerful feeling. But Li Jingji's wind elemental spiritual highland was simply routed upon contact. This was already beyond divine power. From the purple-gold Hao Yue sword, Long Haochen could feel clearly a frantic demeanor seeking for destruction. He subconsciously lifted it horizontally. Immediately, a purplish-golden curtain of light extended, sweeping away all the hurricanes everywhere it passed. Li Jingji's wind god domain became full of cracks, appearing close to collapsing at any time. After a short time of shock, Li Jingji came back to his senses. Once again waving the long sword in his hands, a small-sized wind blade was shot out, aiming straight at Long Haochen. That was the second domain technique he also had to use in his fight against Chen Ying'er, freedom. This domain technique filled with the true essence of wind took a flash to arrive in front of Long Haochen, who slightly drew back, pointing the purplish-gold Hao Yue sword forward. Dang! A sonorous sound reverberated in the air. The wind blade ruptured, but countless gales swept at Long Haochen's direction. The purplish-gold Hao Yue sword was waved once again, and from it came out a drizzling brilliance. In just a split second, that explosive wind blade disappeared completely in the midst of purple rays. This was the sixth elemental essence of disorder combined with his bloodline force. After making this short attempt, Long Haochen gradually came into the realization that the whole earth was in his grasp with a sword in his hand. This was the tyrannical bearing brought by Hao Yue. This was a supradivine tool that only he could control. Although he did not know how Hao Yue achieved this, no one could deny the power of a divine sword that could even stand in front of Li Jingji's second domain technique. However, after a short time of interaction, Long Haochen also realized some issues with the purplish-gold Hao Yue sword. First, this divine sword could only be infused with pure spiritual energy, and consumed his spiritual energy massively. 3 sword strikes had depleted over 30,000 of his spiritual energy. In the meantime, when using this divine sword, no offensive technique could be used alongside it. Only pure slashes and strikes. This was with Hao Yue in a 6-headed state. If the purplish-gold Hao Yue sword was already so powerful, then when he would evolve to an 8-headed state, what terrifying level would this sword transformation reach? Despite the significant use of spiritual energy, Long Haochen could still bear up thanks to the Heart of Eternity's help in regenerating his spiritual energy. Also, the Divine Unicorn's armor transformation supplemented him with about 200,000 backup spiritual energy, enough to maintain his battle state. Seeing his essence of wind broken so easily by Long Haochen, Li Jingji's face became incomparably tense. He began to realize this battle would perhaps be unlike what he had foreseen. Not only did it turn out challenging, victory was furthermore getting further and further from his grasp. But as the head of the Mage Temple, a vastly ambitious powerhouse, there's no way he would give up so easily. Li Jingji knew that the greater one's ability, the greater would be its cost of use. Long Haochen's divine sword was certainly not simply waved around. And thus, when the long blade in his hand struck once again, several bursts of freedom, essence of wind flew at Long Haochen, forming a full powerful assault against him. Long Haochen strode steadily towards the opponent. Right now, his light god domain was compressed twofold, making it easier for him to economize his spiritual energy. With the terrifying power of the purplish-gold Hao Yue sword, the wind god domain was no longer any threat for him. 9 lines of purplish-gold patterns lit up on Long Haochen's forehead, even his eyes turned a purplish-gold color. Although the purplish-gold Hao Yue sword continuously transferred its will for destruction and havoc, as the wielder of a light god physique, Long Haochen's heart was, just like the heart of eternity, not so easily contaminated. In front of the divine sword, Li Jingji's freedom, essence of wind, was not of any use. The wind was shattered in the air as the distance between Long Haochen and Li Jingji kept diminishing. After Long Haochen stepped into the wind god domain, he occasionally slashed his purplish-gold Hao Yue sword in front of him, causing the domain to recoil from its path. Right now he constantly scattered and smashed it, and when he had completely destroyed the wind god domain, Li Jingji would naturally not be able to sustain his domain technique anymore. On the lounge of the Night Temple, Yang Haoyu was seated beside Chen Zidian, a look of shock on his face. Murmuring his thoughts aloud, he muttered, "Originally I was thinking that I had let this youngster win. I really didn't expect that he was the one to go easy on me. His magical beast is actually strong to such an extent. No wonder even demon god pillars get destroyed." Chen Zidian let out a laugh. "The new generation will always replace the old and let it rest peacefully. What a mysterious thing. In those years, when your cultivation surpassed mine, I was in the same situation as you are right now. However, compared to Haochen's nature, his magical beast seems overly tyrannical." Yang Haoyu let out a laugh. "There is no need to worry about this point. This magical beast may be extraordinary, but they are linked by blood contract." Chen Zidian nodded. "This young guy is really perseverant. He's only taken out all his cards in this last battle. From the looks of it, this magical beast's divine sword transformation could be called Domain Killer. Li Jingji's Wind God Domain can not only utilize 2 domain techniques, but moreover, it has undergone an evolution. However, a domain of this level cannot stop in the slightest this purplish gold sword. I'm afraid that no domain could possibly stop it. As long as Haochen's cultivation grows enough, challenging the demon god emperor in the future is not impossible to him." Yang Haoyu's look became especially brilliant. If he manages to obtain the approval of the divine throne of eternity and creation in addition to this divine sword, humanity's chance will truly have come. His bright glimmer of hope truly deserves this name. The outcome of the ongoing battle was already gradually getting obvious. Long Haochen's light god domain was already fully compressed, and Li Jingji's wind god domain was in an unstable situation and could crumble at any time now. Li Jingji's true essence of wind's power was lessening by the second, while the divine sword in Long Haochen's hands was only getting more and more imposing. The purplish gold Haoyu's sword's consumption of Haochen's energy was truly massive. Even his Heart of Eternity's massive regenerating speed was unable to keep up with this consumption. That didn't even account for the previous battle that his spiritual energy had yet to recover from. Li Jingji suddenly let out an upward shrill, as the wind god domain full of cracks abruptly crumbled. Lifting high the blade in his hand, all the green light was absorbed in its midst. Immediately, the scenery in midair was replaced with a bolt of green lightning, flashing green to reach out in front of Long Haochen. This blade strike came without warning, but its great power surpassed all the previous attacks by far. Only Li Jingji truly knew that this, his incomplete third domain technique, was close to a self-incarnated domain, although it had not quite reached that level yet. All of a sudden, Long Haochen could only defend. He truly deserved to be called a genius. Even in such a difficult situation, he still managed to perform divine obstruction. The green light and purplish gold sword tip collided, and for the first time the green side held the advantage. That clear green lightning had countless designs on it, electric light curling all around, and pressured Long Haochen and his divine obstruction into drawing back. The gigantic sword in his hand drew back. Right at this time, a terrifying roar sounded out from Long Haochen's heavy sword. That was an unwilling roar, full of majestic offense. The divine unicorn armor on Long Haochen abruptly turned purplish gold, and then Haoyu's figure appeared on Long Haochen's back. The outer 2 bulges on the figure slowly split, revealing 2 purplish gold heads. Then, the 8 large heads abruptly roared to the sky. Long Haochen felt an immense surge of power from his body and heavy sword bursting out, as his divine sword split forward as he shouted. The green lightning finally shattered, and was completely engulfed by that purplish gold-colored sword. The purplish gold sword ray flashed through the sky, aiming directly at Li Jingji. That previous blow was Li Jingji's last offense. Seeing that purplish gold sword, now severalfold stronger than before, aimed at himself, Li Jingji gasped secretly. He unexpectedly did not even attempt to defend, staring at that purplish gold sword striking his own body. That's because he knew that even if he put all his strength into defending, there would still be no way for him to block this strike. The purplish gold Haoyu's sword was waved to the sky, with both Long Haochen's arms feeling an intense shaking. The purplish golden sword that looked close to arriving in front of Li Jingji turned and rushed in an oblique arc, reducing the defensive barriers of the Alliance's great stadium into mud and piercing through its defenses completely. Everywhere it passed, everything in its way turned into nothingness, disappearing from sight. With an undulating halo, the purplish-gold Hao-Yu's sword turned into a streak of purplish-gold light that disappeared in Long Haochen's hand, and the divine unicorn armor on him reverted to being the divine unicorn. Star King supported Long Haochen, with his body as Long Haochen slumped beside him. Long Haochen's face was as pale as a piece of paper. As Haochen let out a large spit of blood, Star King stopped him from falling. Wind God's descent gradually dispersed, leaving behind Li Jingji, who was standing there with a sluggish look on his face. Looking at Long Haochen leaning against Star King, he had a complicated look in his eyes. Long Haochen won not only this battle, but also the respect of all the present onwatchers. That last sword strike was deflected to Long Haochen's utmost for the sake of sparing Li Jingji's life. Otherwise, given the purplish gold Hao-Yu's sword's destructive power, Li Jingji would be dead without a doubt. Although Long Haochen was down, the spectators on the terraces all stood, enthusiastically applauding. Li Jingji had the look of a dead fish for a whole minute before gradually coming back to his senses. With a mix of disappointment and relaxation, on his face he approached Long Haochen slowly and held him up. Long Haochen's physique was doughty, with the existence of the Heart of Eternity, his spiritual energy was regenerating at all times. Every pulse of the Heart of Eternity helped recover a large amount of spiritual energy. So, although his insides felt like it was all burnt, he still did not collapse. "You have won." Li Jingji nodded to Long Haochen. "You are now already qualified to challenge the Demon God Emperor. The future of the Alliance shall be left to you. I believe that you will be able to lead the Alliance to thoroughly change this era of darkness." Saying so, Li Jingji patted Long Haochen's shoulder before turning around to exit the field. Although this was only the first of the 4 stages of the competition, losing to Long Haochen finally caused earth-shattering changes to appear in Li Jingji's attitude. He understood very clearly that, after the end of this stage, Bright Glimmer of Hope's position would go up much higher. Under Star King's support, Long Haochen slowly walked out from the field. Kia and his other companions were waiting for him there, and the instant Long Haochen was out from the field, Caia immediately welcomed him, giving him a tight hug. After putting forth so much effort, Long Haochen's plan was finally nearing completion. The first match of the 6th round, Long Haochen had won it. The second match opposed Kia to the only remaining knight. Given that this holy knight's previous consumption was too large, he finally chose to retire from the competition, so Kia achieved victory without a fight. Third match of the 6th round was Wang Yuanyuan vs Lin Xin. Although Hasdrugsbro was absolutely unwilling, he finally conceded under Wang Yuanyuan's threatening gaze. Now that the matches were all over for the 6th round of individual competition, and Bright Glimmer of Hope had terrifyingly managed to grab the whole top 3 for themselves. Every winner of the 6th round earned 32 points. So far the ranking for the individual competition was as follows: Bright Glimmer of Hope 256 points, Mage Temple 105 points, Knight Temple 98 points, Spiritual Temple 58 points, Assassin Temple 38 points, Warrior Temple 24 points. However, the competition was not yet over. After the 6th round of the competition was over, Long Haochen, Kia, and Wang Yuanyuan stood in the middle of the field according to Chen Zidian's instructions. This video will end here.